Dwarves, everyone's favorite fantasy race. Well, not mine, but that's because I come from the Warhammer world and high elves are better. But nonetheless, dwarves are a staple of the D&D continuum, and that's certainly true here in Baldur's Gate 3. In this video, I wanted to craft a true Dwarven Defender, blending a ton of defensive capabilities into a character that can act as a main bastion for your party. Keep in mind, there's no actual tanking in Baldur's Gate 3, so you'll have to maneuver this character in the face of your enemy more than anything, but this build can truly hold the line, despite being able to jump over a dwarf, but that's neither here nor there. If this is your first time on my channel, the way I do things is by upfronting the knowledge of my videos. With that being said, we'll be taking 8 levels into Eldritch Knight to give us a ton of defensive options, especially a lot of casts of shield. We'll couple this with 4 levels of Vengeance Paladin to help us hit enemies, as well as adding more defensive options and spell slots. Basically, we're really going to lean into lots of armor class, survivability, and lower amounts of damage in this build to help this character stay in the thick of things for as long as possible. But that's the entire gist of this video. There's more nuance to certain things and what have you, but if that's all you want to know, please feel free to shut the video down. You can also navigate to any part of this video that interests you the most using the chapters in both the timeline and the description. If you are heading out and you found this video helpful, please don't forget to like, comment, and or subscribe. Each one of those things helps my channel out in huge ways. I also have a huge BG3 playlist linked at the end of this video and below if you need help with any other subjects. But for those sticking around, let's get started on the best Dwarven Defender build for Baldur's Gate 3. Popping into character creation, we're going to start off with Dwarf, because this is a Dwarven Defender build. You can use different races for this if you want. I've just leaned into all the different directions of HP benefits from the Gold Dwarf subrace and a ton of other things, but if you want to adapt this to any other race, by all means go for it. You're just missing out on the benefits of the theme and the subrace, which is Gold Dwarf. And Gold Dwarf is going to give us an additional hit point every time we level up, and we're going to get one more just from the start. So we're already going to be on a hard ramp for strong HP. Even if you wanted to adapt this though to the Dwagar, this is also a very good option because the Dwagar get enlarged, which is going to help them out significantly, not having to choose it as a Eldritch Knight spell down the road. So there's a lot of fun that you can actually have with this, even just jumping into a different variation of subrace. I wouldn't touch the Shield Dwarf because you just get all these things. It's really kind of unfortunate that the subrace of Shield Dwarf is completely missed out upon, because this stuff you just get as being a dwarf, well, as you get as being a fighter anyway, so it's not really worth it. But into that, we're going to go with Shield Dwarf. We're going to choose fighter, obviously, and then the fighting style is defense. We will get protection down the line, but in the beginning, I want to focus on more defensive capabilities. If you would instead like to focus on more damage, then go with protection instead. I'm sorry, not protection, dueling instead, because dueling is going to add 2 more damage to any weapon attack that you're going to do, because we're going to use a weapon and a shield for this build. If you use a versatile weapon as a one-handed weapon with a shield, you get the bonus of the 2 additional damage here. Even though it says right there, it says when you're wielding a melee weapon that is not two-handed or versatile in one hand. If you're using a versatile weapon in one hand, you get the 2 additional damage. It's such a convoluted way to describe it, but I promise I've tested it, it works. For your background, go with whatever makes sense for you and the character you're building. Please, as I always say, make a role play for your character. Build something out that makes sense for you and the way you want to approach the character. If you are a soldier, then it makes sense for the type of build you have in mind, whatever it is. If you want a min-max option where you don't need to select things, I always like to go with Guild Artisan, because this gives me persuasion, which is always going to be good, and I don't know why I put the inflection on per in persuasion. And you also get access to insight. Insight's also really strong because this helps you out a ton in conversations where you might just outright miss a conversational choice if you don't have a high enough insight skill. And both of these skills are not skills that the fighter template gets by default, so it's very good. Which brings us into our skill selection. So we will get 2 options here. We already have insight selected and persuasion if we went with the background of Guild Artisan, but I'm also going to put the points here into perception and athletics, because a nice thing that you can do with athletics as a bonus action is just shove things, pushes them over ledges, whatever it is. Just keep in mind, if you do shove something into a precipice over a ledge where you cannot get to the corpse, there are definite times where you will not be able to loot that item, period. Unless, I think there's certain circumstances, if it's a quest item, it generates at the ledge. Something that was generated in like a patch or 2 ago. I can't recall 100%, but this is a good option for your skills, but please choose different ones if you want to. If you want to go with more of an evil playthrough, you know what, dude, I don't want persuasion. I want to intimidate the hell out of everyone, then just go ahead and go for it. You're not going to break the character. These skills are more circumstantial and not really going to contribute to your actual attack damage or anything like that. But now let's go into our ability points. So with our abilities points, we're going to want to put points into the things that make sense for our build. Now we are a Eldritch Knight Fighter Paladin. That is a lot of stuff to go through, so this is going to probably be one of the more exotic ways to go about this branch, but trust me, it's all going to make sense in the end. So first off, we're going to go ahead and jack strength all the way up to 15 and put 2 points into strength. We're going to choose a feat that is a half feat, meaning it will give us a benefit plus a bonus to one of our ability points. That's going to put us up to 18 strength with this build. So we're good there. We're going to be wearing heavy armor, so I just want to make sure that my dexterity is not at a negative. We're just going to put this up to 10. You can increase this more if you really want to, but it's just going to give you more initiative, and we don't really need to really worry about that just yet. Well, in general. Then our constitution, we're just going to bring it up to 15 because, again, we're going to be choosing a half feat that is going to give us 1 point of constitution and bring us up to 16. Lastly, well, not lastly, we're going to put 2 points here into charisma, and then I'm going to bring our intelligence to 13 and use our final +1 bonus into that. So we, in total, once everything's said and done, we'll have 18 strength, 10 dex, 16 constitution, and 14 intelligence across all the plans I have for feats and everything like that. But this gives us the capability to be a potent Eldritch Knight. We're not really going to use most of the capabilities of Paladin, so our charisma score doesn't need to be super high, but the fact that it's at 10 means at least we won't have to suffer penalties on any of the conversational skills that we utilize as a main character. If you wanted to, you could definitely bring your intelligence down and do 2 points more into charisma if you wanted to do that split, and you can use items like the helmet that gives you 17 intelligence. I just don't like wasting a slot on a character for a stat that I'm eventually going to swap that item off once I get later in the game. I don't want to use a item that sets my stat to a really high level early in the game and use it as a crutch. That's a personal choice. You can definitely use it. It's right there in Act 1, right in the first town. You can get it and set your intelligence to 17, and pretty much all this becomes moot. But still, my point remains, I don't like to build like that. It's entirely up to you. So go with whatever makes sense for you. Let's now go into how this all comes alive. So leveling up your Dwarven Defender means that they turn into a Wood Elf. Again, it's just the only character race I have that's highest in the game. So either way, we're going to put our levels here into Fighter for the first 8 levels. And this is going to be nice because we're going to get access to extra attack, all that sort of fun action. But at level 2, we'll get Action Surge, which is going to give us an extra action once per turn. Not once per turn. It's going to give us an extra action for a turn. And we're going to keep a hold of Fighter all the way up until level 8. But at level 3, we will choose our subclass, which is Eldritch Knight. What this is going to also give us, though, is Weapon Bond. The weapon can't be knocked out of your hand, and it automatically returns to you when thrown. So you can actually have some fun with this, with certain things like, you know, the Dwarven Weapon Thrower in Act 3. You can build into a throwing style of build with this build if you want. If you want, you can swap out any one of the feats for Tavern Brawler and become a throwing character if you want. I just want you to know that's on the table, but just not the vision I had in mind for this build. For our cantrips here, we're going to go ahead and pick up Shocking Grasp and Blade Ward. Shocking Grasp is nice here because it's going to do some lightning damage. Lightning damage in general is going to be something we can play around with. Also has an advantage on creatures with metal armor. It's just a nice overall cantrip that we can lean into for this build. For our spells, we're going to go with Magic Missile and Shield. Magic Missile is important because it always hits. It doesn't matter what our intelligence modifier is at, it's just going to hit no matter what. And on top of it with Shield, this is a reaction capability. It's going to add 5 to our armor class, and we're going to be able to use this all the damn time. It's pretty much the primary reason we're going to use our spell slots. Magic Missile is just kind of like a crap, I need some quick damage, let me use Magic Missile. For our expanded, I would go with something that is a support or utility spell, something that your other characters don't have. An example here would be Longstrider. Long Strider is a great option because it is a ritual spell, meaning when you cast it, it will last until long rest. So I'm going to choose Long Strider here, but you could just as well choose Thunderwave if you want some damage on this character. Remember too, it is an intelligence thing, so if your intelligence is not super high, it won't do a ton of damage. But what I like about Thunderwave is that targets will still take half damage even if they save. So it's guaranteed damage no matter what, and I like that about the spell, and it also pushes things. So this gives you a little bit of crowd controlling capabilities with this build, or at least corralling things into one location. I'd say it's between these two when it comes to that first option. But pushing here into level 4, we'll be able to choose more spells. That's when I'll choose the other one I didn't choose. And you can replace any spells you want because that's how you replace them as an Eldritch Knight, only when you level, not like a wizard who can just choose them whenever they want. But this now brings me into the big conversation of our feats, because we will have access to a lot of feats. I think it's a total of 4 feats, so I'm going to go through them right now. For your feat options, like I've said before, you can approach this in however way you want to approach this. If you have different feats you want to try or put into this build or swap them out, by all means do so. Like I said, Tavern Brawler is really great in this build if you want to be a throwing character, but I feel like the internet is swarmed with throwing Eldritch Knight and throwing Barbarians, so I did not want to make those builds. So keep that in mind. The option's there for you. You can go down that path, and you really wouldn't need to do much else. You'd put Tavern Brawler in right now, and you put the strength to 18, and you're good to go pretty much. Everything else sockets right in. But outside of that, our very first one is going to actually be not durable. It's durable. I was right. I'm not entirely dumb. I'm not smart though. So our first one here is going to be durable. This is going to get our constitution up by 1, which puts us to 16. Also, you regain full hit points each time you take a short rest. I find that in the beginning of the game, you do a lot of short rests, and it's nice to just kind of have your hit points go all the way to max guaranteed, and this is going to last you the entirety of the game. So it's a great way to give you a lot of really good hit points early. That's going to be our first option here. After that, our next option happens at level 6 because we're a fighter, and fighters choose feats at 4, 6, and 8. So, well, in this build at least. Our next one is going to be Heavy Armor Master. This is going to give us that +1 to strength, but it also is going to make it so that for non-magical attacks, we take 3 less damage while wearing heavy armor. Heavy armor itself will already negate damage, so it's going to have a nice layer of insulation. And by level 6, we'll have both of our 2 stats evened out to their respective 18 and 16. The next one after that is going to be Sentinel. This allows us to give a little bit more, again, crowd control. Sentinel is most often paired with Polearm Master, but I broke it from that pairing because I think it's still a very fun way to weaponize your reaction. Remember, our reaction is something that's defensive. We're using it for this character to trigger shield. But we can also use it to help out the party. Shield is only going to work for you, right? It's not going to work for the rest of people in your party. Sentinel is a great way to help out your friends if you're next to them. Because when an enemy within melee range attacks an ally, you can use a reaction to make a weapon attack against that enemy. Target ally must not have the Sentinel feat, so probably not going to be in your party. But you gain advantage on opportunity attacks, and when you hit a creature with an opportunity attack, it can no longer move for the rest of its turn. So this allows you to put your character in the way of a lot of enemies, and it forces them to deal with their opportunity attacks. A lot of times the AI will just move away and take the opportunity attack in the face. This allows you to shut them down. If you do get an opportunity attack, you now get an advantage. And if you hit them, they can't move for the rest of the turn. So it allows you to really lock people in place so that you can do all the fun, juicy damage or all the fun, juicy effects that you want to with this build. Now, our last feat that we'll choose actually at the end of, not even the end of the game, you get level 12 like the beginning or midway point of Act 3, is tough. You gain 2 hit points per level for every level you have gained. So by the time you'll get this, it'll be a total of 24 hit points, right? And this will couple with our Gold Dwarf +1. So effectively, we're going to get 3 times 12 for our hit points, where it basically means you have more hit points than anyone in the game that follows the exact same path, right? Gold Dwarf just has that 1 extra hit point. So this is what's going to help give us tons of tankability. So right there in the very beginning, though, we're going to go with durable and keep moving on. Into level 5, we're going to get access to extra attack, making our character way better, doing more damage per turn, basically, because they're going to be able to swing twice per primary action of attack. We're going to choose that second feat here, which is Heavy Armor Master. Remember, that's the one that's going to bring our strength up by 1. bring us into level 7. We're now going to get access to a real cool capability that Eldritch Knight gets. War magic. You have honed your body and magic for war. After you cast a cantrip, you make a weapon attack using a bonus action. So our 2 cantrips at this point are Shocking Grasp and Blade Ward. So we can still use our bonus action to get more damage out of things. An extra attack will kick in for those attacks that happen. So this allows us to have a defensive first play. Hey, you know what? Blade Ward's down. I need that immunity to bludgeoning, slashing, and piercing. We're going to cast Blade Ward, and I'm sorry if you can hear a vacuum in the background. We're going to cast Blade Ward, but our bonus action means we can still attack and do damage. It gives us a lot of punching power and a lot of mobility with our actual action to bonus action ratio within the game, which I love a lot. For spells here, I'm just going to choose some spells that kind of help out, like Darkness here. I like it because we can cast it down and it helps the team. Anything else, just choose whatever you want. You can go with Protection from Evil and Good. Just keep in mind it is a concentration ability, just like Darkness is, so you can't overlap them. I kind of even like Chromatic Orb, because it's just a way to put down a surface to help you out. You can go with another contact ability, though, like Burning Hands if you really want, but these are spells, they're not cantrips, so keep that in mind. I wish that this was Knock. Knock is such a helpful spell, but don't worry, we'll take access. We can get access to that in the next level. So now we get access at level 8. We can choose Knock if we so wish, which is unlock an object that is held shut by a mundane lock. So this is a nice way to pop open any kind of locks if you want. It can free it from other casters to not have to worry about it. Enlarge is a great thing that you can use. Like I said, if you're a Dwarf, you just get access to this, but make a creature larger or smaller to affect their weapon damage and strength and saving throws. So you cast this on yourself to get a lot of fun benefits. It is a concentration spell, though. Another one that I really like is Blur. Concentration spell, but attackers have disadvantage on attack rolls against you. Leans into the direction of defensive mechanics that we're trying to build into this. Same thing here with Mirror Image, but this is not a concentration spell. I really like Mirror Image because each duplicate increases your armor class by 3. Couple that with your defensive capabilities and your stupid high armor class. This is awesome. It means it's a free +9, +6, +3 armor class depending on how many illusory duplicates are remaining. I love this ability for the build. If you want more mobility though, go with Misty Step. But you can get Misty Step through tons of other options. What I like about Misty Step is that it's a bonus action. That to me is super appealing because it allows me to do stuff with my primary turn of attacking things and using my bonus action to get a little bit more fun stuff out. I'm going to choose Mirror Image just because it's going to be fun for what I want to talk about later. For our feat selection here, remember we are now going to go with this is level 8, right? So now this is Sentinel. This is going to give us access to all that fun shutting down and opportunity attack greatness. But now that we are level 8 in Fighter, we pivot away from Fighter and into Paladin. And our oath that we choose is the Oath of Vengeance, which gives us access to Inquisitor's Might. I don't really care about it. You or an ally's weapon attack deal an additional 1 radiant damage and can daze enemies for 1 turn. It doesn't really matter to me, to be totally honest. And Vengeance, I think, is the easiest one to really navigate the tenets without breaking them. Devotion, like you have to play pretty good in order for the character to not break them and become an oath breaker. But as we push into level 2, we'll get access to our smites, which is great, but it opens up our second fighting style. Protection's cool, but it's now, we've really crowded up the reaction space, and I don't like that. So we're going to go with dueling to get that damage. Like I said before, if you wanted to, you could swap and get defense here and have dueling be the first one, so you could have more damage in the beginning of the game. Please choose whatever makes sense for you. For your spells prepared, I actually really like Thunderous Smite because it is an action and a bonus action. That's true, but it is not a concentration ability. And I like Compel Duel because it's basically a taunt, but not really. So kind of choose that as you will. Into our next level, we're at level 3 with Paladin. Not really much to do here. We do get, though, our fun actions of Abjure Enemy. Frighten enemy, they'll have disadvantage on ability checks and attack rolls, and they cannot move. Great way to lock something down so you can do a lot of damage to them. But on a save, they're still slowed, which is great. Lastly, though, we have Vow of Enmity, which you used to be able to cast on yourself and get advantage against everyone. So I have to see if that's actually been patched out. I haven't tested it yet, but Vow of Enmity is still great for a hard to hit target, and it's a bonus action. It lasts for 10 turns. So it's a real great thing to do. Gain advantage on attack rolls against an enemy. This allows you a lot of really fun punchy power on any really hard to hit target, any boss, anything like that. And you can couple this too with Hunter's Mark, because this is not a concentration ability. Hunter's Mark is, but this adds more damage to any target that you mark, so you can really pour on more into that target. It is a bonus action though, keep that in mind. Our last level here goes into Paladin. We don't get any fun cool abilities, just choose spells that make sense for you really. Just keep in mind you don't want to overlap any concentration abilities, any of that fun action. And our last thing here is going to be tough to increase our hit points. Even just look at our hit points right now, they're 112. Now they're 136. If you are a dwarf, these will be 12 more at minimum. So it should be like 148, 150. I don't know if there's other calculations I'm forgetting in my brain. That's why I said 148 or 150. But either way, there you go. We're going to put this at 136. That completes our build. Let's talk about itemization. So for items, you really are going to have a lot of things to choose from because you're pretty much going to go with heavy armor. But let's start with the items that I don't have. Well, the one item I don't have, and it is the Blood of Lathander. This one is going to be able to be acquired in Act 1, and it is real strong because it's a +3 mace that can really bring you throughout the majority of the game. Once per long rest, when your hit points are reduced to 0, you regain 2 to 12 hit points. Allies within 10 meters, they also gain 1 to 6 hit points. You get a light source, which is great for Act 2, and you get a free activation of Sunbeam. So you can use this for the entirety of the game if you want. We don't really rely on radiant damage for this build. In fact, we don't rely on any type of damage, but it's a real great one I wanted to call out before we get into the other weapons for this build. And another one actually that I don't have is the Defender Flail, which gives you 1 AC as well as reducing damage to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing. You'll also get that in Act 1. That's a good one to go with. I just think Blood of Lathander is a better bet. But the big one you're going to get, and it's pretty much going to serve you throughout the entirety of the build, is right in the beginning of Act 2 at the Last Light Inn. I'm assuming you're going with a good playthrough, not an evil playthrough, because you need access to Daemon to buy this. And the reason we like this is that it will give us a +1 bonus to attack damage and attack rolls, and this weapon deals an additional 1 to 6 lightning damage if you bind it as an Eldritch Knight. It's one of the only weapons that benefits from the bond from an Eldritch Knight or the packed weapon portion of a Warlock. So it's actually really cool. And what I mean by that is using this ability right here, Weapon Bond, so that it can't be disarmed, and it will return to me automatically if I throw it. So if I go ahead and click this and click on myself, this weapon now jumps up to a +1 additional. So it's a +2, and it does 1 to 6 lightning damage. And remember, we're not really focusing on tons of damage with this build. You can jump into... Sorry. Oh my god, it came out of nowhere. You can jump into some of the Spark Wall items in Act 1 as well, like the Jolty Spark Wall vest or the Spark Wall shield. But because we're not really hinging on lightning charges, it's not something I wanted to build into the early portions, just as a heads up. Some other weapons, though, you can get access to is Falar Aluve in Act 1, right in the Underdark. It's a great weapon. It gives you access to effectively a Bless or a... Bane, I can't remember the name of it. And then another good one too is Sword of Life Stealing, accessible from Daemon as well in Act 2, right at the Last Light Inn. But you can even grow into like a Belm or the Dwarven Throwing Hammer, which is good because you're a dwarf, so you can actually throw that thing and it can do a ton of damage. And you can bind it, so it's got a lot of really good properties. But I really like the Charge Bound Warhammer. There's not enough weapons where we really get to lean into the bound packed or packed weapon thing. That actually give benefits to the weapon, so I wanted to have fun with this. Please, by all means, choose a one-handed weapon that fits better to what you want to accomplish, but I still think this is a great weapon. It fits the overall feel of the build, and it also does some additional benefits by binding it. So those are our weapon options for our Dwarven Defender. When it comes to armor, it's going to be pretty straightforward. We'll start from the head down. If you want to go with more of a tanky approach by the end of the game, you go with Helm of Baldur. This is nice because it's going to give us an additional armor class and saving throw bonus, but also we can't be stunned or crit hit, which is just lovely. And in addition to that, we're going to heal 2 hit points every turn. If you want to go with more of a damage roll, you'd go with Cerevox Hornhelm to give you an additional crit +1, so that now you, instead of critting on a 20, you'd crit on a 19. You can't be frightened, and you cannot be affected by other emotion-altering conditions, which is really nice. Another really good early helmet, though, is the Helmet of Arcane Acuity. Whenever you deal damage with a weapon attack, you gain Arcane Acuity for 2 turns. So what this means is you get a +1 to your spell attack rolls and spell difficulty class for each remaining turn. So this basically allows you to do those cantrips or any of the spells, gives you a little bit more of a leg up on them. If you really want to lean into that direction of the Eldritch Knight and being more of a melee caster, go with this. Or there's the Diadem of Unforgotten Intellect, Harry Potter edition. I don't know what the hell it is, but you get it in Act 1, and it sets your intelligence to 17. But I've explained how I don't like building early off of a single item that can alter my ability scores and be locked into it no matter what. So it's just the way I like to make my build. So if you really want to, it's a good diadem to use that gives you 17 intelligence to give you more accessibility to spells in this build. Into the the back portion, we have the Cloak of Protection +1 armor class. There's just no reason not to. Like, look at my AC right now. It's at 26. It is disgusting. My dex is set to 12 right now just because of a specific boon I have, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't get factored into your AC because it's a heavy armor. +1 to saving throw, which is also nice. Some other good options, though, are the Cloak of Displacement, because this gives you effectively blur, so granting enemies disadvantage on attack rolls, which is super cool. Flesh Melter Cloak is super early in the game, very similar to the Cloak of Protection, but this has a reactive damage of 1 to 4 acid damage if things hit you. Towards the end of the game, there is the Cloak of the Weave, or Cloak of Absorption. Cloak of the Weave is if you want to do more magic with this, because it's going to give you a +1 spell save DC and spell attack roll. Also, Absorb Element allows you to get an additional 1d6 of that element type on your next attack. So you could do lightning damage and it would help you out in doing more lightning damage with your main weapon attack, which is pretty sexy. I don't know why I said sexy with an I, like 60. That's weird. For our chest piece, we have the Armor of Persistence, which gives us resistance and blade ward. As we can see here, resistance +1 d4 bonus on saving throws, and blade ward, you has resistance against bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. When you take a look at my profile down here in resistances, we have resistance across all major elements and all types of mundane weapon attacks. And I'll go how we get those elemental bonuses in just a little bit. But it's absolutely good. Well, it's crucial. It's awesome. It's amazing because it's going to give us just so much more defensive characteristics in this build. Some other options, though, that you're going to get access to early are any heavy armor you can strike up, or the adamantine, not scale mail, but splint mail, which you'll get at the end of Act 1. It's really good. You can't be crit hit. It's also going to reduce incoming damage by 2. When a magic attack hits you, the attacker is sent reeling for 3 turns. So it's a really good option. It gives you 18 armor class. It's a solid one until you get into some of the better, cooler armor. Options like that, though, include the Flawed Helldusk armor if you decided not to get the adamantine scale or splint mail. And also another good one, too, is the adamantine longsword, because it ignores slashing resistance. That's another weapon I don't have, but it's in the purview of the adamantine items. But Flawed Helldusk armor you'll get right in Act 2 as well, at the Last Light Inn, giving the Hell Forged Iron or whatever to Damon. He can make this. It's a nice one to have, and it gives you some reactive damage as well. Then the Dwarven Splint Mail is great because it fits the overall theme of the build, and on top of it, it's going to give you -1, take 1 less piercing damage, +1 bonus to saving throws and checks, and +2 Constitution. So this is really nice because it sets our Constitution up to 20. Hold on. It sets our Constitution up to 18. I'm stupid. It sets our Constitution up to 18, which is really good. Plenty of health coming in from that. So I really like this one. It's a great one as a holdover until you get access to maybe some better armor, or even the Armor of Persistence in Act 3, which you would buy from Damon. Rippling Force Mail is also really cool for Force Conduit if you want to go down that route, whichever makes sense for you. For our shield options, we have Viconia's Walking Fortress, solely because it gives us Warding Bond, which is great. I can throw that on another character to help divert damage. You gain advantage on saving throws against spells, and spell attack rolls against you have disadvantage. All awesome across the board, but this is the highest AC of any shield in the game at +3. Usually it's just a simple +2. So I do like that a lot. Also, Rebuke the Mighty does force damage, which is pretty cool as well. Reflective Shell is also a nice ability. Other shields, though, Shield of Devotion is nice because it gives us a spell slot, and that spell slot means we get to use shield more, and that is a nice occurrence. Another good one, though, is just simply the Adamantine Shield. Same benefits of the armor, pretty much. It's just the reeling and the critical hit thing is built into the Adamantine profile on any defensive item, but big fans of all those. For our, let's go to boots. I have the Boots of Persistence matched with the armor. You gain freedom of movement and long strider for free, so you pretty much can never be wrangled down, and you're always moving at an additional speed without having to cast those spells. It's quite nice. But some other different ones are disintegrating night walkers, which you can't be enwebbed, entangled, or ensnared, and you get Misty Step, free cast of it, which is lovely. Boots of Striding, which are good if you're using any concentration ability, because it gives you momentum, and you can't get knocked prone or be moved against your will if you're concentrating. So overall, well, great. Lastly, Boots of Speed, click heels, just any kind of mobility boots are always really strong choices here. For our gloves, we have just simply the Legacy of the Masters. Gain +2 bonus to attack and damage rolls with weapons. Use whatever makes sense here. I don't even have a lot of really good recommendations for gloves because gloves are just so... They're usually really built upon an element I'm focusing on or some sort of specific mechanic from a specific type of class. In this case, you can use the Gloves of Heroism if you want. You get those in Act 1. They won't be effective until you become a Paladin, though. So by the time you can actually get a lot of cool gloves online, these are probably the best because they just give you a 2 bonus to attack and damage rolls with weapons. It's a flat increase. It's always really awesome. For our jewelry, for necklace, I like the Amulet of Greater Health. This sets our Constitution to 23 and advantage on Constitution saving throws. But if you have other characters that benefit from this more, like a cleric, maybe you want to go with a different amulet, by all means do so. Some that are really cool here are the Necklace of Elemental Augmentation. When one of your cantrips deals acid, cold, fire, lightning, or thunder damage, add your spellcasting modifier to the damage. So an example of that would be Shocking Grasp, which does lightning. So this has advantage on creatures with metal armor, which is even the majority of armor creatures in the game, and your spellcasting modifier is intelligence, so you're going to add +2 to it. It's just a nice little augmentation. But another one even can just simply be Amulet of Misty Step. Add more mobility into the build. For our rings, we have the Ring of Regeneration just for some heals, and the Sparks Wall ring. That's why the wearer cannot be electrocuted and you have resistance to a lightning damage. Other options though are Killer Sweetheart for more damage, Ring of Free Action if you don't have the Boots of Persistence, because this means you ignore difficult terrain and cannot be paralyzed or restrained. And lastly, the Ring of Mental Inhibition early in the game. When a foe fails a saving throw against one of your spells or actions, they gain mental fatigue, so that helps to make it so that you can cascade more casting damage on them. Now, the ring couples with our bow, the Dark Fire short bow. So now we have resistance to fire, cold, and lightning across these 2 items. So we're pretty much set for all major types of elemental damage. And in addition, we get a free cast of haste with the Dark Fire short bow. One thing I like to do, though, in Act 2, once I get to the... oh, God, what's it called? The place where Ketherick is, the big old tower. The Drake Throat Glaive is... amazing. It's amazing for all builds, all everything, because we're going to put it on right now. And I'm going to have this at the bottom. Draconic Elemental Weapon. I'm going to take my, whatever that thing's called, my Chargebound Hammer, drop it on the ground, use this, press this item, and I'm going to choose Elemental Weapon, Lightning. I'm going to pick it back up, and I'm going to re-equip it. And now, wherever my other shield went, where the hell did it go? I'll just click this. There we go. If you didn't know you could do that, you can do that. So now, look at this. It's now a +3, and it has even more lightning damage on board. You can swap this off. It looks like it's actually not stacking the lightning damage, which I didn't realize until this very moment. What I would do in that case instead is just simply add thunder damage into it. So it's doing thunder and lightning damage, which are 2... lightning damage is resistible very often, but thunder damage is not. It is one of the least resisted elements next to force. So it's a great way to just add an additional element, but most importantly, it makes this a +3 weapon, which is crucial. You're going to get the Chargebound Warhammer at the beginning of Act 2. You get this glaive around that same time, and now you're going to be swinging deep with a +3 weapon throughout the majority of the game. It's going to be absolute aces for you. Jumping into combat here, let's have some fun. So I do have a build that I use a light cleric to be a very tanky build, and I didn't want to go that route this time. You will see the warding flare from light cleric pop up a couple times in this, and you're probably asking why didn't you go with that? It was just a choice I didn't make. I've already done that build. It exists on the channel. You can find a link below or in the upper right hand corner. But for this one, we've gone, of course, with Mirror Image. So take a look at our armor class. 35. From Shield, Cloak of Protection, all 3 of our Mirror Images, Baldur's Favor, plus Defense. We are not going to be touched. Not at all. Not really. And on top of it, we're resistant to everything. So we can even open up here with Vow of Enmity and gain advantage on attack rolls against enemies. So go ahead and do this. So now if I hover over everyone, advantage. So we can really get juicy with this. Now, I'll be totally honest with you. If I had set this up better, I would have probably just put my main character in here alone so that he could absorb as much of this damage as possible. So a lot of this is going to get distracted from the other characters in the party. I apologize if that gets confusing. But we can even open up here with like a Shocking Grasp. And I have advantage. It's got metal, right? Boom, and we hit it. And now we have, if we had our bonus action available, we could go ahead and do an attack with that. Unfortunately, we don't because we just use it for Vow of Enmity. And I spoke earlier about bonus actions having the extra attack of your fighting characteristic. I lied. That is not true. That is only on your primary attack action. So we can use Action Surge, though, because we are a fighter, and get that back. And we can come over here. And we could even go ahead and use Haste and give us an additional action here as well. And so now we have 3 total actions next round. But let's put ourselves in a position where we can kind of get this going. So now we've got advantage here. Hit this character. I could go back over here and hit this character. We have Smite that I haven't even talked about in this build at all because I'm using or thinking about my abilities as something I want to do with my what's it called? With my spell slots with my ooh, missed one of those. My spell slots with my shield capability. And we'll just go ahead and not react to that and place myself right here. I'm actually gonna, there we go. Another one of those. Just put myself in opportunity of attack locations. And we'll go ahead and turn. Remember when I put myself not in the right opportunity attack location? And we'll see if we get any hits on my character. And as people move out of my opportunity range, I will have a free attack on them, which is nice. The AI will generally know this now at this point in the game. Like Act 3, they're a little bit more intelligent, so they'll try to avoid that. See, like this character's going to throw, do whatever it can to not get into my range. And it will not react. And I'm actually going to just Dimension Door. Dimension Door. And just get our 2 characters like over here somewhere. There we go. That's our Wild Magic Will over there. Gale. And we'll just let kind of things kind of go through here. Any hits that we take, they're going to be pretty hard to actually land. As you saw from those 2 opportunity strikes that just completely missed our character, which is lovely. I don't know why I'm just letting Will take all this damage. And we'll end turn there. And they'll just let them throw and do their thing. And place ourselves right here. And we could even do like a little Thunder Wave. We've got lots of little things that we can do with this build. We can compel duel someone. Trying to just bring them more towards me. Go ahead and just attack here. Just again, this is not a damage build, as I've said before. I'm just kind of spreading some damage around. Oh. I guess that that was on auto trigger. But we'll see if we can get any damage on the character. Everyone, their AI will kind of like, oh, okay, well, I have much squishier targets around. I'm not going to attack the guy with 1,000,000 armor class right now. But Compel Duel brings him close to me. That gets one of my illusory images. So, just to give you an overall sense of how this Defender build comes online, right? It just sits in the way of things. We finally have something working, so we can, that's shield on Shadowheart herself. Let that do its thing. But you'd be able to pretty much deal with most everything in the game through the defensive characteristics of this character. You can negate all of it, deal resistance towards it, whatever it is, because even though shield hasn't gone off on this character just yet, we still have tons of innate defensive capabilities locked into that shield, which will further increase our armor class by 5 and completely negate any time Magic Missile is Magic Missile launched our way. We would use this. shield right here. And remember, we won't necessarily need to upcast it. Casting the spell at a high level doesn't grant any additional benefits. It's just another shield source that we get access to. So plenty of really great things here. Go ahead and let me know in the comment section below how you feel about this build. Are you going to play a Dwarven Defender using the Gold Dwarf to get a ton of AC? Are you going to shoehorn this into one of your current playthroughs, the current race you are, whatever it is? Or maybe make some suggestions here. Hey, you know what? I go 6 fighter, 6 light cleric, because that light cleric warding bond is just so crucial to this build. Go ahead and let me know any ways you would change or alter this build in the comment section below. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one and take care.